Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 256 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the second amendment podcast that's a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and with me tonight is an ACP Roundtable. Of course, we have the hostess with the mostest, Erin Paulette. How you doing, Erin?
Oh, jeez. It was, So this weekend was LibertyCon convention in Chattanooga, which is an 8.5-hour drive from Florida, and then 8.5-hour drive back, and I've only been home about an hour at this point. I am super punchy. I have no idea what's happened over the past week. I've barely looked at the show notes. I'm going to be voting present for most of this.
And that is all good. Also from LibertyCon, we have Oddball.
I bought a knife.
Of course you did.
Only one?
Only one from the convention.
Is that the one you just posted a picture of a little while ago?
Yes, I did. Yes, it is.
Yeah, you're gonna. Oh God, yeah, you're gonna have to talk one. But but not yet. We also have. Oh my goodness, this is so good. Xander Opal. Xander,
hello.
How you doing?
Well, let's see here. My drive is several hours longer than Erin's, and I also did it in one day. Ugh.
While listening to ACP blooper reels?
Oh, goodness, no. I saved that for operating heavy equipment.
Of course you did. Well, yeah, Xander has the day off tomorrow, so he can stay up past his bedtime. So we're so glad to have you. David is also heading back from LibertyCon, so he will likely be joining us.
Well, actually, he's home from LibertyCon. He and his wife just went out to dinner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect. Taking the wife out to dinner is for sure. I mean, I came down here a little bit late because my wife came home a little bit late, and I was making her dinner.
Well, David loves eating out.
Don't we all?
Sometimes his wife is involved.
So we've all I declared that this last week that we're we're going to be doing a roundtable because I went to Colorado this weekend for my wife's cousin's wedding, and it was absolutely gorgeous, and the weather was amazing, and it was such a good time, and it was two separate Italian families getting together. So if you know Italian families, you can understand what kind of a wedding this. It was absolutely wonderful. Though we were only there for the weekend, so I'm a little bit jet lagged, but not as bad as I thought. And just to get it out of the way, because I've been geeking out about it so much, is I officially made my first breads with my sourdough starter. So I'm officially growing my own yeast, and I still got a bunch more stuff to learn. But once I feel like I've got a hold of the subject, there'll be a blue collar prepping post on it, because this is grow your own yeast is friggin' cool.
Usually that's called an infection.
I mean, you can. It's an inoculation, Erin.
Are you trying to get a rise out of them?
I did. There's my baguettes and my English muffins, and the baguettes were made with straight with straight starter, and the English muffins I used an inoculated Biga or Polish. So that was, I don't remember what's the difference of which, but either way, I made a pre-ferment out of the starter as well, and so I haven't had a chance to try the English muffins yet to see which one has the more sourdough flavor. But I was super excited, because I didn't use an ounce of commercial yeast for that whole thing. It's awesome.
Oh, I just like leaving my pancake batter in a covered jar overnight.
I mean, that's pretty much what I do. So I think you guys should start, because you guys were at LibertyCon, and so first up, let's start with the big one. Erin, you were super nervous last week, and so I suspected that you would have done just fine. But how did you do, Erin?
All right, settle in. I'm gonna tell this story like Weer'd.
Awesome.
All right. So, we're going to start on Saturday. Saturday, my first panel was at 10 a.m., which is actually first thing in the morning for LibertyCon because they're all night people. Love them. Now, I allotted myself what I thought was plenty of time to get up, get breakfast, eat breakfast, put on my face, make myself beautiful, drive the 15-20 minutes to the hotel because I was at an Airbnb because the hotel rates are usurious. Find a parking space, get in there. And it's like, this is a Saturday. It's Saturday morning. It should be plenty of time. Well, first of all, even though I had allotted myself a buffer hour, I still somehow, I don't know how I ran late, but it's like, okay, I got 30 minutes to get to the hotel. Plenty of time. And of course, there was traffic, and they were doing like road construction, and so there were detours, and streets were down to like one lane, and people were going freaking slow. And then when I get there, everyone who's been to LibertyCon will know this feeling. Well, unless they like rented a room and got to park in the resident parking. But it's just like, okay, I pull into the parking garage and that level's full and that level's full and that level's full. And that spot, oh no, those spots are bought in bulk for a company. If I park there, they'll tow me, the bastards, And so I got behind a slow-ass guy who would literally come to a near stop, would put on his turn signal every time the ramp turned. It's like, sir, this parking structure only turns to the left. I know where you're going. And so I had to park on the roof. I mean, it was literally the open air thing, and I ran. And I got there sometime between 3 and 5 minutes after the panel started. And the panel started on time because the moderator was Mike Massa, who is a former SEAL. The man runs a very tight ship. And so I got in there, they'd already started, and I was very apologetic, and it came to me and was like, hi, I'm Erin Paulette, and the first thing you need to know about me is that I'm not a morning person. I apologize for being late, and it got a laugh, and so that was okay. Had about, I think, around 6 or 8 people, hardly anyone there, and so this was like round 3 of Meet the Newbies, and okay, got through it, and the thing is, I was thinking, okay, well, look, I allowed myself, an hour of buffer time. And tomorrow, I've got a class at this exact same time that I can't be late for because it's just me and my solo presentation. So I'm going to have to get up even earlier, and I was dreading that, which is the ultimate point of the story, and I'll get to that in my own time. Thank you. I told you this is Weird Story Hour. And so my next panel was at 5 on Saturday, and it was the Basic Survivalist. And it went well. I actually expected more people. We had around a dozen or so, and it was very good. I was worried that I was out of my league when people introduced themselves because, oh, look, you're an actual medical doctor. You work for the Pentagon, and you assess threats for a living. You live off the grid homesteader. But I was they were all technically preppers, but I was the only one who, I prepped and I had the skill of talking to people. And so I was worried that I would once again be Schmucky the Clown, but I held my own because I brought a perspective that no one else brought. And I got to spout some of my, famous lines because, they're talking about what kind of disaster. Yeah. And I brought up the whole, well, look, really, you should prepare for your own personal disasters because you're far more likely to have a fire, get into a car wreck, have an unexpected illness than to, there's going to be a superbug or an EMP or an invasion. And so, I got to say that, and you're your own first responder. And so I solidly represented the small scale preppers, and that was really cool. And so I not only held my own, I outshone one of the people there, and so that was cool. And so I just thought, well, okay, if we only get 12 people for this panel, Then tomorrow morning, first thing in the morning, I'm up against the coffee klatch with multiple New York Times best-selling authors. I figured I was only going to have 2 people there, and that would be Oddball and Xander. So I got up at 5:30. And so, I mean, I was going to get up at 5, but I literally had to have that extra 30 minutes just to recover. And so I gave myself like 4.5 hours. And I got ready, and, breakfast was accounted for, and I made myself pretty, and I got in the car, and magically there was no traffic, and I was able to find a parking space pretty much on the first parking level, and so I got there a solid hour before class. This is one of the few times my military father would be pleased with me. It's like, okay, great, I've got an hour to prepare. I can set up, I can do all these things, and I'm setting up. And the guy who has the presentation after me, he wanted to set up. He had video, and so there was an audio guy in there helping him. And it was like, hey, a lot of people wanted to attend this presentation but couldn't. Usually the ones who couldn't even make it to LibertyCon. Hey, I brought this pocket recorder. Do you think we could plug it directly into the soundboard? He said, sure. I haven't heard it yet, but if it worked, the audio should be good, and I can run it through a transcription service or whatever. And so I'm all set up, and people start filtering in, and Oddball is there early, and Xander gets in just a little under the wire. And I'm looking around, it's like, okay, I've got about 12 people. This is actually better than I thought. And so I start the presentation, and you know me, I've got levels in Bard. My concern was I've never done a public presentation about prepping before. And I was actually worried because LibertyCon has a lot of former military people, and I thought there would be a lot of people who were sitting in the back going, this is bullshit
stuff.
I could build a better bag when I was in the Army and whatever. But I'm going, and people are listening, and it's going great, and more people start coming in. And more people start coming in. And I didn't know if it was because they tried to get into the coffee klatch and couldn't, or they'd been partying the night before and they'd just now gotten up and were filtering in. But now I'm gonna ask Oddball and Xander. That room was about the size of a typical high school classroom, I would say. And while not every chair was full, it was pretty full. So I would estimate I had somewhere between 25 and 30 people. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, and that was a great turnout for a 10 o'clock Sunday morning con panel.
It was fantastic. And so 2 neat things as I head into the closing stretch. So here's a funny story. So I'm wrapping up, well, actually not wrapping up the presentation. I'm close to the end of my speech, and then I was going to have 10 minutes for audience participation, asking questions. And so I talked about, food, and it's like, here's an MRE, and there's the size, and there's the weight, and they suck, and, and here's a humanitarian ration, and it's vegetarian. And then I talked about first strike rations, and people hadn't heard about those before. And if you don't know what they are, you know what, that's okay. I'll talk about it later in a blue collar prepping article, because this story is already long. And so, and then I asked, so who wants to see me open up this first strike ration? And it was an almost universal yes. And I was curious. I wouldn't have offered if I didn't want to. And everyone wants to. It's like, okay. And I try to tear the plastic. It's not quite the full thick MRE, whatever vinyl. But it's like, okay, it's resisting me. And I know I've got knives in there, but it's like, they're kind of heavy, so I keep them toward the back, and it's not quite easy. And so I say, it's more like I'm thinking out loud. It's like, oh, gosh, I wonder where my knife is. And from behind me, because I turned away, I was looking at the bag, I hear click, 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 click. For people who are fans of the 1990s Batman, the animated series, if you've seen that episode, Almost Got 'Em, where, it's Batman and the villains, and the rest of the CD bar is occupied by cops, and there's like a full 30 seconds of cops cocking their guns. That's what it was. And I turn around and I see just an uncountable number of people either presenting me their knives or, pulling them out. And I just go, that was a silly question. I forgot where I was. Because
it was a very knife moment.
It was, and I just laughed. And Oddball was like in the second row, and he's tall, and he was handing me his, and it's like, I know you, I'll take yours. But I mean, if I were to ponder the knife to person ratio there, I would say that there were more knives than people.
There were.
And so, yeah, I opened the ration, and that's the end of the story. It was really the whole, wow, click, 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 click. It just went on, all these knives. And so I ended the presentation, and I throw stuff in the bag, and I put it on my deer cart, and I haul it all out. And I'm thinking, you know what? I did okay. It wasn't terrible. There were things I could have done better, but I'm certainly not ashamed of it. I would give myself like a B-. I'm already thinking of the things that I missed. Oh, I should have mentioned this. I could have done this better. Here's what I'll do next time. And so I'm out in the main corridor, and people are coming up to me, and they're going, wow, that was a really great presentation. I learned so much. Wow, this is fascinating. I'd like to learn more. Where can I go? And it's like, well, hey, I've got this blog, and we got the Facebook group and things like that. And wow, I hope you come back next year and tell us more. And it's like, well, you know what? You should talk to the convention committee and tell them how much you like it. And maybe they'll ask me to come back. Maybe we'll have a bigger panel. And so, I thought I did adequately. Everyone else was just, that was fantastic. So, once again, I am my own worst critic, and I apparently crushed it.
Erin?
I'd like to say two things about it.
Yes, please.
One, yes, I was planning on giving you some grief tonight on the whole, you're doing a prepping panel and you don't have a knife handy. But you weren't the only one that had to borrow a knife from me that this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll get to that.
Okay, sure.
Well,
I do want to point out.
And the other thing with the panel is I love how you fielded the guy that made the recommendation of using a tampon as wound padding.
Do you want to tackle that, or do you want me to tell it?
Yeah. So somebody tried to do the whole and one thing that you can pack that's great for wound packing is tampons, and the military actually did that for a little bit, which no, they didn't. And Erin just kind of looked at him and said, "So does anyone have a counter opinion to that statement?" At which point, 80% of the room raised their hands.
Yeah. I don't remember that because no one said anything.
Several people raised their hands, and you just went into the no.
Oh, I'm sorry, I must have missed that.
And for the record, tampons no, maxi pads yes.
Really?
Yeah, maxi pads are basically are basically fancy gauze.
Ah, okay. Well, then I only got it partially right.
In fact, at one point, what was it, during World War I or World War II, a lot of the female nurses started using gauze as feminine hygiene products, and that's kind of where maxi pads came from. So they're good for the, oh yes, I need something to stick on this wound here.
Okay. Yeah, this is where I must confess ignorance because I am not a vagina haver. I can only go with what I've been told or what I've read.
Right.
So yes, it was a really great presentation, and I had fun. And then once that was done, it was like, whee, I can enjoy the con. So I'm going to hand it off to, I guess, Xander, who wants to talk.
Just one more comment on your presentation yesterday, Erin. When you started wrapping up, it's like, wait, already? But there's so much, and I'm having fun.
I know. It was just, I told everyone, we're just scratching the surface. This is a really deep rabbit hole. And I barely touched on a lot of things. It was like, no, this is woefully inadequate, but, don't know what to do.
You had so much more love to give.
I did.
Mm-hmm. But, so anyway, yeah, I had decided to pad my time out a little bit because next time I will not plan on doing this unless I absolutely have to because of work constraints. But no, I did the trip from Michigan to the border of Tennessee and Georgia in one day. So, and then did it back today in time to make it to this little get together. So,
how many miles is that?
Bit over 600, 660 or so each way.
Yeah, the going. Well, actually, no. You were working hard going through. I was thinking about like when Ryan and I drove from. Ryan drove all the way from Maine, but to Louisville for the NRA meeting, and going down it was fine, but coming back after a long weekend of con, that was a rough slog, and I almost slid our shitty rental car under an 18-wheeler a couple of times.
Were you listening to the blooper reel?
I don't even know what I was listening to. I was just trying to keep my damn eyes open.
When you almost slid it under an 18-wheeler, I was like, on a family trip, was that intentional just to make it stop?
As well as it wasn't a family trip, it was me and Ryan, which also,
okay, yeah.
And that is the voice of David. I said he might come. How you doing, David?
Well, I haven't come, but I'm here.
And the plaster is gone.
You'll need to listen to the AC people for real to get that one.
And boy, is my face red. Anyway,
just like your shirt in that picture.
Yes. So the color is so saturated.
It is. But yes, I have returned. Yeah.
Welcome back, David. So I was talking about my LibertyCon experience.
Are you the one who had to borrow the knife?
Oh goodness, no.
Okay, no. So in my defense, here's the thing. I had packed the knife towards the back because you pack the heavy things close to your spine, and the way I had opened the bag was I had put it down horizontally and opened the rear panel so I could get the stuff, and it was like, if I had gone in from the top, I could have gotten it, but the way I had that particular flap open, I would have had to have dug. And then I realized, oh wait, I've got some surgical shears in the side pocket. But by that point, click, 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 and it was just, you know what? We'll just go the easy route. I will take the humorous L.
Yeah, I had a clown car's worth of knives in my pockets.
So a normal day for Oddball.
Humorous L would be my porn name, I think.
Was the tampon part of the event of the presentation spoken of?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, good.
Yep.
Oh, by the way,
and I did want to ask a question. So I don't know if this was addressed either, but the reaction to Erin's panel, was that discussed?
Yes.
And it was clearly stated who these people were?
Who were these people?
No one we knew.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
But they know you now because you're a big deal.
You are a big freaking deal.
So
and
anyway,
who knows? Maybe we'll get a blue collar prepping post out of one of them.
You're gonna get multiple ones. So since I had already opened up that first strike ration, which contains 3 meals, and I had to drive not an entire day, but it was just, you know what? This thing is going to spoil now that the package has been breached. I'm just going to eat it on the way home. And as I've said, I've never eaten a good MRE. I have eaten things that are tolerable to awful. This thing, and I haven't eaten every single thing, but I've eaten like 85-90% of it. This is the tastiest thing I've ever had. I mean, it's not like, oh my God, fine cuisine, but this is at a minimum school cafeteria and more like fast food drive-thru. It's like, this is good. This is good. I am eating a good military ration. What the hell?
What is wrong with these people?
Well, no, it's more like, have I slipped into an alternate universe where everything is good? So I'm definitely going to get at least one post about First Strike rations, and I'll probably talk about MREs and humanitarian daily rations, things like that. And somebody needs to take over or I will keep talking.
Well, I will just take a real
finished.
quick. Can I just do a quick interjection, though? Because Erin's talking about all this knife stuff, and I remembered that there was one point where podcast will love this. Is people remembers, I think it's a couple years ago, but I got my lovely mermaid knife, and to pad it out to get free shipping from Midway USA, I ordered a few other like dirt cheap knives, and one of them was a very, very bizarre Remington knife was kind of nice, but kind of weird and cheap, but either way.
But was it sharp?
It was extremely sharp because I was.
How sharp was it?
I was using it to open. I was flicking it open to open the package of the mermaid knife, and as I was flicking it, the scales were a little bit slippery. There might have been some shipping oil on them, and it spun around in my hand, jabbed into my stomach, and then fell to the floor. And then I just went, ouch. And no, this is just that one time. And then as I went down to pick it up, suddenly realized that there is blood everywhere and I needed to get stitches. And I've been carrying that knife around ever since. And it's become my de facto travel knife because frankly, the knife is cursed. And if I end up losing it because of a travel mishap, either I lose it somewhere or I make a mistake when entering into TSA. There's absolutely no harm, no foul. And that should lead up well enough to know that when I start talking about how suddenly I was standing in Denver International Airport and my bag was went through the X-ray machine, and then they took it and they put it back through the X-ray machine. And I went, I wonder what's going on. And finally the guy says, "Is this your bag?" Yes. I'm like, what's the holdup? He says, "There's a knife in this bag." And I said, "Is there?" Oh, there was a bag that I had the knife in, and it was in my suitcase coming down, but when I went back, I'd put it in my carry-on because it's the bag that I keep all my charging cables in and stuff. And I was going to take the cables from the rental car and put them in that. And I said, "Oh, that'll be a good idea." Except where I forgot that's where I had stashed the knife.
So you stashed the knife inside a dead animal carcass?
I don't get the pun in that one.
Xander, you want to step up?
No, because I missed it. I kind of zoned out with Weer'd telling a story.
Okay. That's valid. You had it in your carry-on.
Oh, yes. But so he's like, "Do you want to mail this back to yourself?" And I said, "No, you can have it." He goes, "Oh, I'm not allowed to take it." I said, "I give you full permission, but remember, it's cursed."
So wait,
that's only slightly cursed. Oddball, where is the cursed knife?
This was
no one knows.
Okay.
True.
This was the mermaid knife, like the one you gave me?
No, this was the little green Remington knife that I was carrying in Texas.
I don't know what that is. You'll have to post a picture.
The one that he attempted to commit seppuku with.
See, I don't remember which one that was. I don't have the mental image of it.
Yeah, it's all good. It was just a crappy little knife. I don't even know if they make it anymore.
It was just some Chinesium giveaway type knife.
Okay.
With Remington branding on it.
Yeah. So the other person that needed to borrow a knife from me this weekend was a friend of the show, Rebecca, who was working security at the convention and went, "Oh, I'm working security and I don't have a pocket knife on me." And since I had,
do you have a knife I can borrow?
A couple extras.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, "Oh, I have the knife for security." And
I knew exactly which knife that was going to be, and I was giggling.
Which
So
knife was? Oh, was it the Dessert Warrior?
No, that would have been hysterical.
That would have actually been better,
That would have been better.
but not a lot better.
No, it was the white and blue CRKT ritual.
The pocket scimitar.
Ah, yes, the white one too.
Yeah. And her reaction was, "Ooh, yeah, I need to carry this."
Well, when you first handed it over closed, of course, as is proper, she's like, well, I don't know. And then she opened it. She's like, oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
And-
is it this one?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, it is.
That's very nice.
it's also very large.
Yeah, and Rebecca
It
is
is.
not.
And I think she was kind of slightly disappointed when I remembered on Sunday to ask her for it back. And Saturday morning, David and I went to a con-related range session.
Friday morning.
Yeah, the range
Friday
was
morning,
Friday
yep,
morning.
sorry.
Yep.
I
Friday morning.
passed because I was exhausted, and
Yeah.
Me too.
And I was like, I'm going to be safe.
Yeah,
I am not going to handle firearms in an exhausted, still recovering from driving state of mind.
yeah. I did that for exactly the same reason. I just decided, screw it. I don't have to be anywhere until 5 p.m. I'm just gonna go on diva time.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I respect both of those choices,
Yeah.
honestly.
I mean,
Oh,
it
yeah,
also
absolutely.
helps that I got there without either firearm or like my range bag. It's like I had no ear pro, I had no eye pro. I might have been able to bum one off, but it was just like, you know
yeah.
what? I'm taking this as a signal from above. I'm sleeping in.
Yeah. Yeah, I brought a bunch of spare ear pro.
Yeah,
So there was plenty, but it was a small group. It was like what, 8-10 people?
something like that. Yeah.
This was not the main pre-con range day. That was at a larger, more expensive, greater distance range that apparently there was more than a little bit of displeasure at.
Oh, was there?
Dish.
Yeah, I'll talk about that a little later.
But we got the opportunity to shoot a 22 calico with wooden furniture.
Oh.
It was so pretty. It was so
And that alone made me regret not
Yeah.
making it.
Me too. It's like,
Well-
I regret not going.
Well, I was talking with the in another group, the folks about the range day, and I made a comment about the next year I'll try to bring something more interesting, but probably not as cool as the calico with wood furniture. And the owner of that said, "Okay, I guess that has to be a regular participant then." Like, yes, it does.
Oh, nice.
And well, Erin and Xander, I will say that there is a distinct chance that there may be a calico showing up in October if you can make it.
There was also at the other end of the spectrum.
On the other end of the spectrum, there a gentleman showed up with his EDC gun from when he lived in Alaska.
Well, he lives in Montana, so according to his wife, he still does carry that on occasion.
A 4-inch Smith and Wesson in 500 Smith and Wesson.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Hard pass.
And
It honestly was not as bad as I thought it would be.
Well, for one, it's a revolver.
I
Oh, jerk.
I believe the term is brisk but manageable.
Yeah. It was. It was a serious hard push, but it wasn't there was no snap.
If your form is down pat, it is brisk but manageable.
You're
Yeah.
plowing
Any
long
flaw-
rows.
If there's any flaw that it's going flying out of your hands, you're gonna double.
Screw you,
Oh,
Weird. I
yeah.
know that you ignored it, but David, can I at least get a sensible chuckle out of that?
I did.
Thank you.
I get that didn't come through. So, would you like to repeat what you said? Because I think it might have gotten
Yeah,
overwhelmed.
I squashed you in. I'm
So
sorry.
it was plowing long rows.
Shall we explain this reference to to Weer'd?
You know, I don't care. Do as you like.
Okay. So, Weer'd, you know Kelly Grayson?
I know Kelly very well.
Okay. He was telling a story, and
Like Kelly does.
I cannot do this story justice. I am not even going to try to do the story justice. But they went to a call, and they get there, and it's a hotel or motel or whatever, and there is a naked woman under a sheet on the bed, and a naked guy holding a towel to his groin on the floor. You have heard this one?
I have heard this one.
Okay. And when Kelly was trying to translate what the guy was trying to say, and so, okay, yeah, you were plowing the short rows. You remember that part of the story?
I do.
I remember the end result. He might have told it differently.
Okay, well, that part was very distinctive because his partner at the time was a very young, very religious woman, and they get back in the ambulance after dropping the guy off at the hospital, and she's asking him to explain what he meant by plowing the short rows. And he says, well, you know, when you ever plow a field, I grew up on a farm. Okay, so is a field perfectly rectangular? Well, no, it's usually some odd shape. I'm like, okay, so when you're plowing the long rows, how does that work? Well, you go back and forth. And then when you get to the little odd-shaped corner where it's short rows, how do you plow that? Well, you go back and forth. Oh, my God!
So, anyways, and
just so you know, the don't Google this, but that gentleman had suffered a penile fracture.
Yes.
And it looked like an eggplant.
No,
it did not.
it did not. It was a compound penile fracture that ruptured the urethra.
Ooh.
So the penis wasn't full of blood. The condom was full of blood. So this isn't bad. It'll heal on its own, right? No. You need to go to the hospital. I don't want them messing with my dick.
Sir, you'll be unconscious.
Yes. Well, what's the worst that happened if I don't go to the hospital? Well, it'll shrivel up and fall off. Okay, let's go.
Uh-huh. By the way, Oddball, don't forget to mention your birthday present.
I'm trying to get there.
Okay.
Yeah, he's plowing the short rows on the way to that story.
So, all of us that shot that other than the owner of said revolver, we all did the sensible thing and just loaded the one round, and that was enough. There was one new shooter at the range with us.
Really, by the way, really nice guy, very attentive.
Oh yeah.
I mean, as an instructor, I have had students who are not, so I really appreciate him and his focus.
Yeah. When the gentleman pulled out the 500 Smith and Wesson, said that he wanted to try it, and I think all of us in unison said, "No, that's not a good idea."
Pretty much. Yep. The woman and her son who were there together had a 6.5 Arasaka.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, they only had a limited amount of ammunition because it's not easy to find. So they were just asking folks to just fire one round.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fired a 6.5 Arasaka, 6.5 Carcano, or 6.5 Swedish Mauser, those are all comparable power levels, and it is such a smooth cartridge. The 6.5s are just very nice.
I did have a few more folks fire the alleged firearm. Had one person that was interested in shooting the Altor, and then when I showed him the operation,
Yes.
he said no and slowly backed away from the table.
Was that Ian?
Trying to remember who it was.
He had the buzz cut?
No, it wasn't him.
Okay. But I remember there were a couple of folks like, wait, what? How is that a thing?
Hey, Oddball, did you bring the 44 mass?
The 44 mass?
Mass.
Oh.
As in
2222.
Yes.
No, I didn't, because I wasn't sure what kind of range it was going to be, and the fact
you
that
don't want to take that smoke for, I don't know where that you get a baffle strike or take out a light.
Yeah.
right, yeah,
Or somebody
Good
else's
point.
target.
yeah. But I bought a knife and was given a knife.
Well, the knife you bought was lovely. I don't remember if I saw. Did I see the one that you were given?
Oh yes, you saw the one that I was given. Give me just a minute, and I will upload a picture of that one.
Yep.
It was a
and
present from Xander.
Oh yes, now I remember.
Mhm.
But Oddball, the folks who joined us at the range, there were some other positive comments about the 10mm high point.
Ah, yes, yeah. A bunch of folks shot the 10mm high point, and it continued to run flawlessly. And
And have a decent but not fantastic trigger
yeah, a surprisingly good trigger
for a high point. Yes,
Yeah,
but it was most of the comments that were along the lines of, "Wow, that was not as sucky as I feared,"
hmm
which is all you can ask from a high point.
right. Let's see here. Get this to actually rotate. Okay, Google Photos. Why do you insist on changing the interface every other time I use you? Okay.
Because you suck and they hate you.
Pretty much, yeah. But so there's a picture of the of Xander's birthday gift to me, which is a little keychain bullet shaped knife.
Weird focus.
Is that based on an actual cartridge, or is it just an alleged cartridge?
Well, I mean, it does have 30-06 stamped on the
Where the head would be, yeah.
where the head stamp would be, but I mean, it's clearly not an actual cartridge.
Yeah, it's a solid casting that is in the dimensions of a 30-06.
But and the knife that I bought, let me throw.
By the way, Xander, what was the name of the truck stop you bought that at?
How did you guess?
That definitely came from a gas station.
Was it Bucky's?
No, I think it was a Love's.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, and I just went into the other chat to see where, to pull up that comment about some of the guns that were shot at the range day. There may have been a 10mm high point and a life card and that super cheap single shot thing whose name I can't remember.
And yes, the life card was mine as well. But and the knife that I bought this weekend was a bit higher priced than the thing Xander gave me.
Which didn't take much.
No, I'm sure. A lovely handmade knife from Bjorn Bladeworks. Ben, who's the proprietor of that place, makes some awesome knives. And this particular one is about a 5-inch blade. The scales are a mixture of a kind of a flame acrylic and stabilized hardwood with carbon fiber rivets. And the blade material is a Damascus that uses metal from the barrels of old Leopard tanks.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Actually, if I may interject real quick, Oddball, the groom at the wedding I was at, he showed us his ring, and I was was one of those, like, he was super nervous. I'm like, look at that, you did it, man! You got the ring, and you figure, holy crap, let me see the ring. And it was a Damascus steel ring with a gold band inlay.
Nice.
Absolutely gorgeous. And I'm like, you know how that happens, right? He goes, no, I have no idea. And I started telling him, and his eyes just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm like, go on YouTube, and there's like a whole bunch of different people that will make Damascus billets just to show you. And he's just like, I'm gonna look that up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Oddball.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought that occurred to me. if someone stops a liquor store robbery with that gun that folds up to fit in a wallet, does that mean the robber got carded?
I mean, you got that. But yeah. Now the good news, bad news about Ben at Bjorn Bladeworks is the prices he asks for his knives are extremely reasonable for what they are.
Yeah.
There was another knife that very much inspired by the Norse Sax swords that I absolutely loved, and I was thinking about getting instead of this, but the fact that this had the leopard main cannon barrel steel was just yes, I want this one. Go. What you were going to ask a question, David?
No, I was just going to say that back in that other chat, the Altor is being described as the gun with which make. I'm sorry. Try that again. The gun which makes you violate a remarkable number of rules to shoot it.
Yes.
I told him I couldn't say anything bad about it. I have a Stinger knife gun.
Of course, I've put a link to Bjorn Bladeworks in the show notes. I highly recommend folks go to his site and give him some love. He's a great guy.
Yeah,
and makes good stuff. And if his knives are
pardon?
Yes.
What was that weird?
He also listens to the show. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And if his knives are a little bit too pricey for you, which I understand, like I said, they are very reasonably priced for what they are. Of course, handmade, well-made handmade knives are not cheap.
No.
But
I've seen pictures of the knives that he's disappointed in.
Oh God!
Oh,
yeah.
this one didn't come. This one, I'm so disappointed. This one didn't come out the way I'd hoped. I'm like,
Yeah.
The blade profile on this one is all wrong. Like, come again?
I say right to it. Look, man, I'll take that piece of trash off your hands. No problem.
Yeah. In fact, I've bought one where he said, "Yeah, I wasn't happy with I'm not happy with the grind on this one, dude. Just take my money." But if you have long hair or you have a lady in your life that has long hair,
or a
he
man.
also or a man, he has a second website that's also in the show notes called Hairborne Defenses, which are he makes hair spikes using G10.
And they come to a needle point.
And
he has some video. I don't know if the videos are still up on YouTube, but he had some videos of him testing them. And one of his tests was hammering one into an oak plank or an oak log.
Mm-hmm. And they are. You've got some very pretty options in a bunch of different colors.
Yeah.
And one, I will say that them being G10, they're pretty much indestructible. And two, Panya has tried to use hair spikes and hair needles in the past and just couldn't. They would always slide out of her hair. And basically at a convention, Ben sat down with her and put them in her hair and said, "Yeah, try them out, and if you like them, if you don't like them, bring them back." And, this was on a Friday night. Bring them back on Saturday, and if you do like them, then well, I know you guys, and I know that you'll pay me. Or, I know you'll either get the product back to me or that you'll pay me. And
gun, either send back the gun or send money.
Right, and she ended up buying three sets.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife also bought a pair fairly early on when he started making them because we had to go to New York City on a somewhat regular basis.
Oh.
And completely effectively disarmed with those, she was not. And she basically, her hair is thick but very smooth, so she couldn't use the sticks to hold up her hair. What she can do is she can tie her hair back in a bun and then stab through the bun from either side.
Right.
And then, if necessary, she could pull one of those out. And the funniest story about the hair sticks that Ben makes is we were coming back from one of these trips, and she had two pairs. She had the black ones that she had bought, and then an orange pair that Oleg had given her after doing some photo work for him. And so we're driving back, and she's got the two sets, and we had some leftover Chinese food and realized we did not have any flatware. You see where this is going.
I had actually thought that those were chopsticks in that display at the con.
Yeah, they are chopsticks. You just have to eat carefully.
Sort of, yeah.
Because they are pointy.
Yeah, and yeah,
they work perfectly fine, and they cleaned up very well.
And yeah, they're about the size of some overly thick chopsticks.
Yeah. They come in varying lengths. There are two main lengths, but because they're handmade, there's always some variation.
And if you're curious about the effectiveness of these types of devices for self-defense, I will point out that during the suffrage movement, both in England and the U.S., there were municipalities that banned the wearing of hairpins.
Yes. And I actually grew up in one of those municipalities.
Yes, you did.
That was actually part of the later reason for the Sullivan Act, interestingly enough. If I remember the history correctly, was they banned or restricted or whatever women from using hat pins, and then their justification for the Sullivan Act was the assaults on women.
Right.
Again, if I'm remembering the history right. But Ben makes beautiful stuff. He also recently added danglies with dragons or lotus or butterflies that can go on the ends of the hair sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the bronze dragon dangly. And I forgot to ask him this weekend about the possibility of dragonflies, because I happen to know a lady who really likes dragonflies. In fact, at the art auction, she was reminded that she had bid on something because she had forgotten because, well, I'm not going to win. And she had won. So she went running down to collect her prize and messaged me that she had to go to the art auction to collect her prize. And I turned to Oddball and say, all right, odds on it being cat, dragonfly, or both. That's kind of a sucker bet with my wife. And it was, I'm not sure if it was a pin or a clip, but it was a dragonfly. But Ben, really nice guy. He had a pretty bad health scare part of which involved him spending several months in a coma.
Yeah.
And he's still getting some of his mobility back from that. But he does fantastic work, and really, if you like good knives, if you have a need for the hair sticks, please support him.
All right, has Erin done their Liberty Con experiences?
I didn't. I just got here.
Okay.
Well, that'll teach you for being late.
We were invited out to dinner with friends to meet her brother, who is heading back to Texas tomorrow.
Well, that's what you get for having friends.
I mean, say what you want, but at least he made the trains run on time.
I had nothing to do with the trains.
Thank you, Erin.
You're welcome. I wasn't talking about you, David, but, okay, even for an off-color joke, I didn't want to invoke a certain name.
All right.
I bet you didn't see that coming.
I did not see that coming. But let me Gestapo you right there. So I had not a very full schedule, but there were some parts that were a little disconcerting. So one of which was I had an autograph session on Saturday at 4, and sitting at the same table with me for the autograph session were Steve Diamond and Larry Correa. Now,
Never heard of him.
let me shut your whore mouth. let me set this scene a little bit. Last month, we went out to North Carolina, and we went through South Carolina, stopped at a Buc-ee's because there was a Buc-ee's, and my wife bought me a Buc-ee's Hawaiian shirt. So it's got the floral and the little Bucky heads, and it's very nice. And she said, "You need to wear that at LibertyCon on Saturday." I said, "Yes, dear." So at the Bain Road show, I'm sitting there in my Buc-ee's Hawaiian shirt, and Tony calls Larry up to the front, and Larry goes running up to the front wearing a bright red Buc-ee's T-shirt. And I'm like, oh, dear, because I'm a fan, but I don't want to be that fan. Like, okay, I can always take this off. And I start to unbutton it. I realize the T-shirt I grabbed out of my suitcase was a Wendell the Manatee Hoon T-shirt. So yeah, not taking the Buc-ee's shirt off. That might be worse. Larry, of course, thought it was quite amusing.
Well, and also, I believe it was on Friday morning as we were taking stuff out to the car to go to the range. We ended up being on the same elevator as Larry.
Yes.
And
I was joking with him about sitting between him and Steve at the autograph session. He was like, "Oh, you'll be fine." I'm like, well, yeah, because no one's going to talk to me. But so I get there a little earlier than Larry does. And I sit down and set up my books, and Steve Diamond goes up next and sits down next to me, and he is such a nice guy. I mean, I've listened to Writer Dojo, yes, and that was the impression that I got. But, you know, Weer'd seems nice on the podcast, so I figured that was a way of confirming
the
Steve.
public.
Right. I've heard the blooper reels. I know who he's like. I've been touched by him. But you know, Steve and I are joking around, and so I had to tell him the story, which was on a previous blooper reel, but I will repeat it here because this is the woman I was out to dinner with her and her husband and her brother. So we had them over, we're chatting, I'm talking about the upcoming event. I mentioned I'll be at the autograph session with Larry, and she comments, "Oh, you've mentioned him, I should check out his books." And then I said, and also at the table will be Steve Diamond. And she immediately, like a switch being flipped, full-on fangirl. Now, for those of our listeners who are not aware, Steve writes horror, capital H horror. For such a nice guy, it's really kind of disconcerting with the stuff that he writes. And so she's going a little batty about this and panicking about, are the books still in the boxes they left at her mother's in Texas, or are they in a box somewhere in their apartment in Tennessee? And her husband is trying to calm her down and talk her off the ledge. "Honey, we can order more. We can get duplicates. It's okay. You can have one signed one and one to read," and all this stuff. And suddenly she looks at me and she's like, "Yeah, I can order them off Amazon and have them delivered to your house." She then locks eyes with me. "I know where you live." And I'm telling the story to Steve, and he just starts laughing at that point. So I buy one of the books for her and get it signed. And her husband is named Stephen with a PH, like my middle name. And so Steve signs the book, "To Erin, best wishes, even though your husband spells his name wrong." And so I brought it to her. I gave it to her at dinner tonight, and she's like, oh my God. She opens it up and just bursts out laughing, and she's shoving it at her husband. Look. So, yeah, really nice guy.
Yes, I forgot to mention my own encounter with Steve Diamond. Apparently, it really grabs the attention of a horror writer when you mention that you dig graves on the side.
Oh yes, that was. Having chatted with Steve, I can imagine what his face did when you said that. Slow turn, eyes wide. Really? Tell me more.
And I did, and he just got more and more delighted with every additional detail.
Of course he did. He's a horror writer. But on later on Saturday, I had a reading, and basically it's 1 hour, 2 authors, and you each get half of that time to do a reading. And I read from actually my first published story, which was completely out of my wheelhouse. It's a fantasy romance, very family friendly, mild, cozy romance. And I'm reading it, and the people that you could have heard a pin drop. It was really weird. I've never had people that attentive to a reading. And then my time ended, so I found a good stopping point because I didn't want to steal the time from the other author's reading. And there's like this moment of silence, and one of the guys says, "You have those for sale, right?"
Aww.
And after I left the reading, I went to Author's Alley to set up my table, and he showed up and bought a copy for his girlfriend or wife. I forget which.
Nice.
Hopefully,
Nice.
he bought one copy, so obviously he didn't buy it for both. Hey-o, girlfriend, wife.
May they
did
never
it.
meet.
Thank you. And I also had some, you can see the pictures from LibertyCon, the people's name tags. They have the ribbons stuck on the bottom. Well, last year I'd been given a stack of them by Mona Lisa Foster, which said, "Get woke, go broke." And I still had a bunch left, so I was giving them out. When someone bought a book, I would offer them one of those ribbons. And I showed it to him, and he's like, "Oh my God, yes, I have to. Not only am I going to take that, I'm going to tuck it in the book for my lady friend, because she's been a manager at Target for 25 years.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's spicy. That good luck to you.
Black humor is like food. Not everyone gets it.
Exactly. And then I had on Sunday, I was invited to the Coffee Clutch, which is where the authors and publishers and marketing people all go to mingle. And I didn't, and still to some degree don't understand why I wound up there, because, okay, I was scolded by Lydia Scherer, who is one of the sweetest people you're likely to meet. But I'm standing outside the door to the Coffee Clutch waiting for things to get started. We can go in. And I'm friends with her, so I can open up a little bit and say, I'm not sure why I'm here. I mean, I'm a author at this level, and this is for authors at this level. And suddenly she is right in my face, shaking her finger, using mom voice. I don't want to ever hear you say that again. That is something perpetuated by the traditional publishing house. Bain occasionally has little bits of that, but they've gotten away from it, and indie has never had it, and you are just as valid and just as worthy to be here as any of those other writers. And she went off for like a minute, and I find myself just kind of pulling in and looking at the floor, because mom voice. And when she was done, I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Don't make me repeat this." "Yes, ma'am." And I was so affected by that I went to the Coffee Clutch and I mingled, and then I missed my next panel. I was on a panel for New Voices in Urban Fantasy, and I spent time productively.
Aww.
I just wasn't at the panel, because I spent that time up in the con suite chatting with a very lovely lady. I think you can probably guess who I'm talking about. Not my wife. She's the lovely lady.
He's talking about me.
Yeah,
I
these
understand.
people.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna pry unless you guys want to discuss that.
No, not really. I mean, just we had a great
Yeah, we just
lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And good conversation. And then 2 p.m. on Sunday, I had my second Author's Alley table. And so Saturday at 8 p.m. On Author's Alley is great, because everybody is going back and forth through, and they're in good mood. They've come from room parties, so alcohol has been flowing. Sunday at 2 p.m., when the closing panel is at 3, is a little odd, because you'll have the spurts of people going back and forth trying to get to this or that, and some folks will stop and chat. Like Steve Diamond just wound up hanging out at the table next to mine and just chatting with us and chatting with whoever stopped by. It was. I don't understand how all of that happened in the 6 hours that I was actually there. You know what I mean?
Cons are like that.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, I'm looking like, I didn't really do that much, did I? And I actually made the mistake of saying that out loud in front of my wife, and she just started listing off everything. And she also said when I admitted that I had missed that panel at 1 p.m. on Sunday, she looked at me and said, "Next year, I have a copy of your schedule." It was not a question. Kissed her. But yeah, it was a great time. Made some new friends, reconnect with some old friends, got to meet a couple of new babies, which, yeah, not a thing for me, but my wife enjoys new baby. I have a feeling that at least one of those people is going to get something baby related in the mail, a hat or socks or onesie. I don't know. I know that we went out to North Carolina. We got to meet her great nephew for the first time. Our niece and her husband had a baby, and what a cute little. But we stopped at Buc-ee's, as I mentioned. So baby got a little baby Buc-ee's t-shirt.
Nice.
She was going to get a onesie, but this kid is big. I mean, he's 6 or 7 months old and is wearing 10-month-old stuff. So I said, don't get him a onesie because he'll be out of that in no time. Get him a t-shirt that'll probably be a little big now, but he'll have it longer. That was my suggestion. She took my suggestion, and our niece, his mom, was very, very appreciative that we didn't buy something that fit him today because it probably wouldn't have fit him by the time they got home. But yeah, LibertyCon was just that was a lot of fun. That was very intense. I did way more peopling than I am comfortable with. But
And you sold books.
I did sell books, not as many as I'd hoped because I came home with books. But made some good contacts. Honestly, the one thing I really regret is that I wasn't able to make it to Erin's bug out bag panel because I was doing the coffee clutch.
Yeah, and apparently you had such a good time that you were hearing everything and nothing.
Well, that's part of the auditory issue.
Well, yeah,
It was very loud, lots of people talking, and so I had to angle myself in such a way to reduce the echoes. So I missed several conversations.
I mean, you could have just ducked out.
For networking purposes, I really couldn't.
Okay.
Because I want to make sure that I am known and remembered by some of these folks.
David, she's not mad. She's just disappointed.
No, not even that. I do understand. It's just a case of if I ever have to miss any of your panels, you need to keep this in mind.
Oh, I would understand.
Okay.
Absolutely. One of the writers that I'm good friends with, we've been in at least one, maybe two anthologies together. We've become good friends. He missed my reading because he was attending another panel. And I understand that you only have a limited amount of time. Things conflict. You've got to balance which one is going to benefit you the most. And I figure I can pick your brain on bug out bags. I'm not sure if you'll tell me now, but
you really think I'm that petty? Come on.
No, that was a joke.
Oh, okay.
My deadpan delivery sometimes betrays me. But yeah, so it was a good time. As we were packing up to get ready to go on Sunday, wow, that's a lot of rain.
Yes.
Laughs in Floridian.
It was you could not see across the parking lot rain.
It only lasted for about 10 minutes, but
I've driven in Florida rain. It's you're on the left side of the road and you can't see who's on the right side of the
road. That was basically this.
Yeah, there have been times that I've been driving to or from work, and we've had rain that if my car had a protruding hood ornament, I wouldn't have been able to see it. And you're on the highway doing 10 miles an hour because you don't want to hit something. So yeah, I understand heavy rain. And this was just, it had been drizzling on and off, and then suddenly the faucet. But we did get one last meal together at City Diner.
City Cafe.
Or City Cafe, rather. Yeah, there were communication issues.
If everybody knows, somebody doesn't.
Yeah. I was so fried at that point, I was just going where I was pointed.
So So, this was my experience at City Cafe. Now, yes, I understand this was literally the last day that they were open because they were closing at like 6 a.m. the next day. And I realize that things are chaotic and there are maybe some employees wondering if they're still going to have a job when the new place reopens and things like that. However, I don't remember what time it was when we were seated. It was sometime after 6, but it was before 6:30. And we were there to sort of kill time and take the edge off because at 7 o'clock would be the pizza party. And so we just sat down, me and the two people I was with, and we ordered drinks and appetizers. And one appetizer was brought out right away. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited. And at 6:30 is when I looked at my clock, and it's like, I wonder what's going on here. And we actually had to call a server over because our server we couldn't find. And so this other server went investigating and was like, okay, well, they'll be out soon. We're, apologizing. We're really backed up. And then our server comes by and it's like, yeah, they're coming right out. Okay. And then the same person who got the one thing, because she ordered two different things. She ordered like cheese toast, and then she ordered like beans on rice. She ordered a side to be brought out as a dish. And at that point, it was 6:45, and neither I nor the other person had been served. And I was hangry, and I literally had no idea when or even if we were going to get our food. Because in the same time that we had been sitting there, an entirely new other party of, I want to say like 6 to 8 people came in, sat down, ordered, and received their food, their meals, and I hadn't gotten my appetizer. And at that point, I just go, okay, I'm done. I get up and I go to basically the front and I say, and I explain the situation. And I just say, look, just, cancel my order. How much is the lemonade? And the guy, he just said the lemonade is free. And I don't know if I can really characterize how he was acting. He was professional. He didn't seem upset. He didn't, how do I put this? He seemed to tacitly acknowledge that things were screwed up. But neither was he especially apologetic about it. And it was just like, okay, whatever, I'm done. And I left, and I then proceeded to the hotel to go, and then I devoured 5 slices of Papa John's Meat Lovers pizza. So, I have always had previously good experiences with City Cafe, but that one really annoyed me. And yes, I understand extenuating circumstances, but that does not let that particular server off the hook.
Nope. I agree. I know that they were shorthanded and overwhelmed and running out of all sorts of things that they didn't think they were going to run out of that soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, that server just basically ghosting you there's no excuse.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it was short timer syndrome.
Could be.
Yeah.
Or just, honestly, it could have also just been exhaustion because City Cafe is a LibertyCon staple, and everybody was going there all weekend. There were lines out the door basically the whole con.
Mm-hmm.
But still doesn't excuse ghosting customers.
Yep. That's all I had to say on that.
But other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lane?
Well, on the way back to the hotel from the City Diner, I was catcalled.
That's true. Some people, they see a pretty lady on the street, they can't help themselves.
So there was woo-hooing and slapping the side of the car.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
You're welcome. And then as soon as we passed, I pulled out my phone and messaged Erin, that was me.
Yeah, it was not apparent, immediately obvious who that was. And okay, to be honest, in my mind, I was sitting there going, was that sincere or was that someone taking the piss? I did not know if that was ironic or sarcastic. And then
Or
it was like,
honest.
oh, it's David. Okay.
That's a different category altogether.
Yeah. It's like,
It's just him.
well, I figured it was sarcastic, but lovingly so, not, mean. So, all right.
The other part of it was I roll up the window and I turn to my wife and say, I have never catcalled anyone from a car before. And she's driving and she's looking determinedly straight ahead. You did fine.
So, do we want to talk about the breaking news?
Yeah.
Which breaking news?
The one that I posted in chat.
Oh, okay. I was still looking at the show notes. Let me scroll back up. Yes.
So apparently and I think I vaguely remember hearing that the trial was going on. The Club Q shooter trial has been going on, and the sentence has come down. And the shooter has obviously been found guilty and has been sentenced to over 2,000 years in prison.
It's a good start.
Which in the article, one of the attorneys involved in the case stated that this is the longest sentence ever handed down in the 4th Judicial District of Colorado, and to his knowledge, the second longest sentence ever achieved in the state of Colorado, second only to the one that was given to the Aurora Theater shooter. So, basically, he's getting that because Colorado abolished the death penalty in 2020.
Yep. Yeah, I was just reading this. Judge Michael McHenry also sentenced the shooter. I'm not saying his name.
Good.
Also sentenced the shooter to an additional 2,208 years in prison. The quote was, the death penalty still matters, even if it's not law in the state of Colorado. The threat of the death penalty in the federal system was a big part of what motivated this defendant to take this plea in our case. Wow. Okay.
He was also quoted as saying, cases like this are why the death penalty should exist in the state of Colorado.
Yep.
So here's my question, and I want to preface this with saying I don't disagree, but the outrageous amount seems, again, excessive to the point of perhaps performative. Now, is there maybe something in there where the math was done, and by giving this specific number, it means he's not eligible for parole before he dies? Because that would make more sense.
What I'm guessing, and I'd have to dig through the case to really see, but what I'm guessing is that basically he got the maximum penalty for each murder he performed that day.
Each murder and each attempted murder.
And each attempted murder, yeah.
There's like what? How many?
Well, again, my question, when the judge tacks on an additional 2,000 years, that's really what has me curious.
Well, it was 5 consecutive life sentences, and a life sentence is usually 100 years.
Yeah.
And then it was a sentence for each of the 46 counts of attempted murder, which is a lesser amount but cumulative.
I mean,
so
yeah,
it was consecutive, not concurrent.
Right.
Okay.
And I understand your point completely over the whole. Once you get past 100 years, even assuming that time off, it's for good behavior, etc., and all that comes into play, you're still talking about you're going to jail for the rest of your life. At which point, anything beyond that is
just more,
just a number. But
Yeah, that's similar to when Whitey Bulger got sentenced here in Boston. He got 2 life sentences plus 5 years, which seems again absolutely ridiculous. But again, it was one of those. It was just he had multiple charges so he was given the sentence for each charge individually, and they were they had them set up as sequential.
Yeah, consecutive. And a big reason for doing that, from what I've read, is he has a certain number of appeals. I don't know how many. It seems unlimited sometimes, but I'm sure it's not. But he could appeal this count or that count or the other count. So Whitey Bulger, if it was 2 life sentences plus 5 years, he could appeal and maybe get those life sentences knocked down, and then it would be 20 years, 5 years, time served, consecutive, or concurrent.
Right.
And the judge in this case apparently wants to make sure that he never breathes air outside of prison again.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
And
so basically it's going to be right. You're going to appeal these. You're going to have to do each one, and it's going to bankrupt you. That's
there
cool.
There are law firms that do this kind of thing pro bono.
Yeah.
Then they're going to, I understand that they don't do pro bono things to make money, but still, this is going to eat a large part of their time, if nothing else.
Yeah, their time budget.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have sufficiently, you have answered my question enough, and I am satisfied. And now, Xander, say what you were going to say.
Oh, I just wanted to add one more thing on there. Sorry, Xander. Was my only concern when I saw the duration of the sentence, before I realized it was the 5 murders and 46 attempted murder counts, was that the appeal would be easier because of the excessive length. But then I realized it was 51 different counts. So sorry, go ahead, Xander.
My thought is that the judge wanted to ensure that one way or another, that piece of sugar, so Weird doesn't have to add it, I'm being nice for once, will end up being buried under the prison.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting is there are a couple of quotes. The husband of one of the victims, Ashley Pogg, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name right, I apologize. But her husband, Kurt, in court asked, why isn't the punishment for this much harsher? Because Colorado no longer has a death penalty.
Right.
That's the only answer to it. And the family of Derek Rump said, we have no forgiveness in our heart for him. We hope karma comes back around to him as hard as it can and as often as it can. We hope he never has another day of peace. And for a man going to prison for that long, karma coming around to him as hard as it can, as often as it can, that's going to have a very specific meaning. And for a man who expressed considerable anti-queer sentiments, good.
Yep. Yeah, no, and especially given that I'm sure people will be passing around his mugshot for all that. And
I'm sure that the families, if they think of it, will mail them to the other prisoners.
Yep. Yeah. You see that's smelling blood in the water.
Yep. Yeah, and that picture will be wrapped around a carton of cigarettes.
Oh.
I was going to go in Boston soap.
Soap on a rope, without the rope. Mm.
So, moving on, I think we've all thrown our 2 cents in that one.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of us threw 4 cents in.
Yes, I saw this. This is a breaking story here in Massachusetts. I saw this really more as a very, very interesting story. It's not a good story. It's a tragic event. But last night, so this was on June 25th, there was a break-in at a house in Newton, which is a fairly affluent suburb of Boston.
I thought that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, very nice place. I was actually looking it up because I actually couldn't remember, because all the little burgs around Boston, it's hard to tell where is that part of Boston or is that is at its own separate town, and Newton is its own separate town. But and so somebody broke into this house, and there were 3 people, all of them on the elderly side. One was the mother of victims, so a very elderly woman, and a couple that was actually celebrating their wedding anniversary.
Their golden wedding anniversary, which I don't know how long that is.
That's 50.
That is 50. Yeah.
And so they were killed with stab wounds and blunt force trauma. And at the time of our recording, police believe that the killer had no connection to the family. This was just a random act.
With this type of thing in this type of neighborhood and that type of violence, that level of violence, I find it unlikely that it was just, I'm going to walk. I think I'll break into that house and kill all those people. Maybe it's very. Well, think about it this way: anytime a person is murdered, who is the first suspect?
Immediate family,
the spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is the spouse, which honestly tells you all you need to know about marriage and murder. But and they are normally, vast majority of the time, they are correct. It is immediate family or someone close to the victim. The thing that I find really odd about this article is every reference to the people being elderly is in quotes, which that doesn't make grammatical sense.
Well, it's newspaper.
I know, but it still bothers me.
It's the Boston Herald, which is slightly better than the Boston Globe, but not by much. But either way,
which would you rather wrap your fish in?
I mean, the Globe is the Herald's a broadsheet, so the Globe actually wraps fish.
And but there you go, folks. The Herald isn't even good enough for Weer'd to wrap fish with.
But this is what I wanted to point out is, number one, this is Newton, Massachusetts. Of course, the chief discretion has been taken away by Bruin, and Massachusetts has not been fighting it. And so now you can get your carry permit in Newton, but until then, unless you had an inside connection, you were not getting a carry permit in this town. And then furthermore, it's in Massachusetts. We have some of the strictest gun control in the country. And this is also one of those instances that, according to the anti-gunners, never happens, which is somebody breaking into your house with intent to kill you. They
just want your stuff. Just let them have your stuff, and you won't be harmed.
I mean, David, by all means, you may be right, and there may be some more information that we're not going on. Again, this is a very, very breaking story.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not even suggesting that the police are wrong. I'm just saying statistically it seems unlikely.
But either way, this could be something very, very bad, like a serial killer. I don't know. Hopefully the police will catch the person, but as the police are advising people to lock their doors, I would advise some other things. Well, doors and windows can be broken, and this person actually did force their way in. So a locked door really wasn't the major factor here. And while they are breaking down the door, it might be a good idea to retrieve something if you're not armed.
It is. It's tragic anytime something like this happens, and the wheels of North Central versus Bruin need to grind a little faster.
Yeah, we will see what happens, but I mean, it is very slow.
That reminds me of something. I haven't made the announcement yet because it hasn't been official, but it'll either have been filed today or tomorrow. So by the time this drops, it should be official. Yeah, I don't know if I can be brief, so settle in for another rambling story time here by Erin. I will try to keep it.
Well, yeah, you have to keep in mind that our context for that is weird.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is talking about OBS PP, and what people need to know for the purposes of this story is that there were 3 lawsuits that were filed against Illinois that had gotten to either circuit level or SCOTUS level. I don't remember off the top of my head right now, and I'm too punchy. I don't remember their names anymore, but they were essentially, they were suing for the assault weapons ban. They were suing because of the magazine capacity ban, and they were suing because of the sensitive places. In other words, Illinois was trying to pull in New York and declare as many places sensitive as possible to deny concealed carriers. And in the wake of NYSERPA v. Bruin, SCOTUS remanded those back to whatever level with the instructions to consider this in light of their most recent opinion, which is a polite way of saying, we said what we said, don't make us repeat it. And as a result, those 3 cases, and I don't know who made the decision, but I think it's wonderful, they basically lumped them all together. And so they were being revisited, retried, whatever as one case. And I found out about that. And I was like, oh, I got to get a piece of that. Because ever since we were quoted by Alito in the concurring opinion, it's like, all right, now I feel like it's a personal crusade to take down every single state that is trying to fight Bruin. And I really, really wanted to get in on this, but, we don't have money for a lawyer. So I contacted Larry Keane of National Shooting Sports Foundation and hey, can you find me a lawyer to write an amicus, whatever. And he says, I can't get you funding because we're a plaintiff. And I was like, oh, crud. Okay. So I reached out to Alan Gottlieb of Second Amendment Foundation, and he's insanely busy. He said, I think I can find you someone. And then I checked in a little bit later. It's like, yeah, the guy who was willing to do it pro bono was just diagnosed with cancer. And I was like, oh, God, yes. Yeah, he's certainly got way more important things to worry about, no problem. And just the deadline to file was ticking down. And it's like, I went back to Larry. It's like, this was the email equivalent of, please, Larry, help me. And he says, okay, look, I think I can find you a lawyer who can do this for like $3,000, but you're going to have to raise the money yourself. And I was like, oh.
Erin, can I just toss something in? Shouldn't that have been, help me, Larry Keane, Obi, you're my only hope?
No. So anyway, and it's like, okay, $3,000, get me that in writing. I think we can make it happen. And I say we, because it wasn't just me. I contacted the members of the Historically Discriminated Coalition, and I didn't hear back from all of them for reasons I don't understand. Maybe they filed their own amicus brief. I don't know. But I heard back from Diana Muller of DC Project and Laura Smith of Liberal Gun Club. And so the 3 of us, and it's like, hey, we can split this 3 ways. Can your organizations each toss in $1,000? And they were like, yeah, we can do that. So, we overcame a lot of hurdles. And of course, we didn't do it by ourselves. But there was a moment where I just felt like Thanos going, fine, I'll do it myself. We'll write a check. And so Larry put us in touch with this gentleman, Michael Rice. And it was one reason he was able to keep the price low was because we gave him copies of our previous briefs. And he was more or less able to heavily crib from them. It's like, hey, the arguments are already there. We just need to change a few things. I don't know if amicus briefs, if plagiarism is an issue or not. But with it being a legal document, I don't know. But anyway, and so he was able to get us that price and turn it around on short notice because he could basically cheat. And, it's either filing today or tomorrow, and I am just so pleased that due to the connections I have and due to the donations from the people who support blazing sword pink pistols that I was just able to say, you know what, do it. I mean, hell, if it had come to that, I could have written a check for the whole thing. It would have stung, but we could have done it. But instead, we split it 3 ways, and that's fantastic. So that's my good news. I haven't heard anything back from any of the others. The one against Oregon's Measure 114, or our Knight Foundation filing against New York on First Amendment grounds. I'm gonna have to nag them, but yet again, nothing else. We are filing like mad, and we're going to annoy them if no other thing. So that's my good news about that.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
That is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And beautiful news.
Once again, proving that Erin Paulette is a big frickin' deal.
So in less beautiful news, but I think the entire firearms world has been talking about it, and we would be remiss not to. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of other political stuff that we can stray away from, but Hunter Biden went to court.
Never heard of her.
And of course, Hunter was going up for tax evasions on various money that he got paid by various entities under dubious circumstances, and that's as deep as I'll go. That's as deep as go. I could do a whole mag dump, but what
about the 4473? Weird.
Yes, but the big thing was that Hunter Biden, we've talked about this multiple times on this, is a gun owner. And he bought guns from gun shops and filled out the 4473. And he has also been very, very open about the fact that he is a active drug addict. And as far as I know, he has never been clean since he started doing drugs.
Weird. Quick question. I've only ever heard it referenced that he had a 38 caliber revolver. Did he have more firearms?
He definitely had Joe Biden always talks about him owning shotguns, which is like he said on multiple times.
Joe owned them or Hunter owned them?
He has said on multiple times as president.
Okay, you're tossing around he and that president helped.
Yep.
Use pronouns.
President Biden has said,
proper nouns.
I've done this in audio fists where he has said, my sons own guns.
Right.
And it's like, wait, one of your sons is dead and the other one's a junkie. Is this really the look you want to go for? And so,
like, he cares, he'll be covered.
Exactly. And so, and there's allegedly he owns at least a gun. There's this 38 Colt revolver, and also
a Colt Cobra.
Yeah, and also there is there's been on his laptop there are pictures of him holding an XD pistol.
Okay. Yeah, because like I said, I'd only ever heard about the Colt Cobra.
Yeah,
specifically being tied to Hunter.
Yeah, I don't know if he owns the XD or if it was somebody else's, but
still to possession.
Either way, he has been very, very open, both through his interviews and his book that he published, that at the time of him filling out this 4473, he was in fact still doing illegal drugs. And by illegal drugs, I mean pretty much all of them. I think like Pokemon, he's trying to catch them all. And he wrote, "Are you addicted to any controlled substances?" And he said no. And then did interviews talking about picking up Parmesan cheese off the carpet and smoking it because he thought it might be a chip of crack. And so he got charged with lying on the 4473, which in itself is a pretty rare crime on its own.
It's usually tacked on to something else.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And this was the only weapons charge. But the interesting angle that's really going on, most of the time the charge gets dismissed, though most of the time the charge gets dismissed from the defense essentially making a deal to get certain charges dismissed for a plea. But in this case, it was actually the prosecution that recommended that the charges be dropped. And
of course.
And so
I'm sorry, which who is the boss of the prosecution?
Oh, let's see. The Department of Justice. Let's see. I'm pretty sure the President of the United States is in their chamber.
So this is Trump's fault.
Yes, this is absolutely Trump's fault. But yeah, so this got broomed, and no, this has nothing to do with the son of the president. Honestly speaking, the fact that he's in court at all also probably has something to do with him being the son of the president, because, again, anybody else, no one would care if he was talking about him being a junkie. But in this case, he is a very, very famous junkie because he is the son of the president. And I also want to point out that this gun is the exact same one where his girlfriend, which is also his brother's widow, they were in a fight, and she ended up throwing it away in a trash can by a grocery store, which also happened to be in a federal gun-free zone.
Yep. And the police recovered the firearm after a guy looking for recyclables found it in that dumpster.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And then the Secret Service came through and essentially broomed that case because there was no...
Well, according to the Secret Service, they didn't do anything because they were not offering protection at that time to the ex-vice president's son. So, no, there's nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. Yes.
Yeah, just like the owner of the gun shop where it was purchased said that the Secret Service came to the store and requested all the background check and 4473 information related to the sale.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he refused and instead bravely turned the records over to the ATF, where I'm sure that they are properly and carefully filed. That hurt. Yeah. That hurt. Oof. But
Shredder goes Bert.
Yeah. But Weird, did you hear about the plea deal?
For Hunter?
Yeah.
I did.
An article in the Reload by our good friend Stephen Gutowski. Yes, Hunter Biden can no longer own firearms.
Oh, that's true.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
He pled guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges and agreed to what's called a diversion program, which I'm not familiar with. In lieu of felony charges related to the 2018 purchase of a firearm, he will avoid jail time under the deal, but will have to stay clean for 24 months and agree to never own guns again. The never own guns again part, I don't think he's going to have an issue with. Clean for 24 months? Has he been clean for 24 days?
So the diversion program, that basically means that we're going to skip the trial. You're going to be on probation for a given amount of time, and if you keep your nose clean, take that as you will.
During
that period of time,
that was too easy. Low hanging fruit there.
Then the state will basically dismiss the charges. They won't, and they won't be on your record.
I have to question that because I don't know if it was last week or week before, but I told you about my friend who was shoplifting when he was a teenager because he was hungry. And I believe his words were, he went into a diversion program.
If it was a diversion program and he completed he completed the probationary stuff, then it should have been removed from his record. There should not be a conviction on his record.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it counts as a conviction or not, but when he tried to get a job working with a financial company where they did apparently a more involved background check, it's like that popped, and he didn't lose the job because he never had it to begin with, but it tanked his chances at the interview process.
Okay, well, like I said, with a diversion program, the way it's supposed to work is if you do it, you're agreeing that we're not even going to have the case, technically the charges are dropped if you go through the probationary period.
I understand.
As long as they do the proper paperwork after everything's done.
I understand everything you are saying. I am being cynical here and saying this may not work the way that it's said to be.
Oh yeah, it may. Well, I'm sure it works differently for different people. I will note that that Hunter Biden got I believe Joe Biden signed it himself. Got like a dispensation on his age because he was above the age to enter the military, and he entered the Navy JAG Corps and was in the Navy JAG Corps for I believe a couple of months
before he popped positive.
Yeah, before they flagged him down for a drug test, and he tested positive for cocaine, which I will note that I believe the half-life for cocaine is 6 hours, and so that meant that he was still high when at the time that he supplied the sample. And so yeah, this is not someone who is going to. He might do fine not owning firearms, but I don't think he cares, and I don't think that he'll be able to stay clean, because I think he was probably a teenager the last time he was clean.
And I know people that have gone through the diversion program, and they have squeaky clean records now. So
that's good. But it's a general rule that the whole point of diversion programs are for people with clean criminal backgrounds, and ironically enough, Hunter has a clean criminal background, including being kicked out of the Navy for testing positive on drugs. So there's another. It's good to be the king sort of situation, but because he has a clean background, then they're saying this is your one screw up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now the article from the Reload also has this heartwarming quote from Hunter's lawyer, Chris Clark.
Mm-hmm.
I know Hunter believes it is important to take responsibility for these mistakes he made during a period of turmoil and addiction in his life. He looks forward to continuing his recovery moving forward.
Huh. This period of addiction and turmoil in his life called his life.
Pretty much.
David, I know that was your sarcasm font. The fact that it sounded like a pubescent teenager whose voice was cracking, that was an added layer of hilarity to me.
Actually,
yes.
That was the mental picture I keep in my mind when I use that voice. Is the actually meme.
I was actually kind of thinking Chicken Lady from Kids in the Hall.
You would be wrong.
But all right, let's get away from this before we get too deeply political. So Oddball, you found this one, and why don't you set it up?
Okay, so if David would stop covering it with clicks, so and I know I always butcher his name, Maj Toure. Toure, thank you. Who founded the Black Guns Matter organization and has been a rather public figure in the 2A community, and specifically when it comes to minorities, because he is very much black, and I believe is actually a rapper, not that it really matters. But he was arrested last week in Philadelphia.
Born and raised?
That is where he lives.
Yeah. For the initial reports were for just peacefully walking down the street carrying a firearm. And when I first heard these reports, I figured that there was probably something more going on. And in fact, there was. So apparently, even though he is a resident of Philadelphia, he does not have a carry permit to legally carry in the state. So
is he also a prohibited person?
He is also a prohibited person. Back in 2013, he was arrested and convicted of selling counterfeit items, which we're talking like I don't know what the items specifically were, but I get the impression that they were, think the fake Rolexes or Gucci purses or knockoff Nikes, whatever. Which
hello, New York called. They want their counterfeit goods back.
Right, which is a BS charge to say that you're a prohibited person, but it does carry a sentence of up to 2 or 3 years, which does trip the federal definition of a felony and therefore makes you a prohibited person. What I find interesting is that he started Black Guns Matter in 2016, so 3 years after he was convicted, and has obviously been very public about handling firearms, firing firearms, and possessing firearms. Which, yes, like I said, do I think he should be prohibited because he sold some knockoff goods? Like Martha Stewart is prohibited because she lied to the IRS? No, but unfortunately, that's the stupid laws that we have. And if you are of that type, it's not the... If you fall into that category, maybe it's not a demonstration that you have great critical thinking skills to, plaster YouTube videos and pictures of you owning guns and going to the gun range and all of that fun stuff. If you simply doing that is a crime.
Yep. No, this is it's a dodgy story. I mean, Erin and I have known Maj for a long time. When he first hit the scene, like I really supported him a lot. I liked the idea, and a lot of people did get uncomfortable about the fact that he didn't care if the guns that showed up for his training sessions were legal or not, because he told us in person that, yeah, man, you gotta be safe with a gun personally. And I've actually warmed up to that a lot more. I know Reno May talks a lot about people in California who illegally carry, because California is a ridiculously dangerous state. And if you are in any of the parts of California that are ridiculously dangerous, they're not going to give you a carry permit. So some people make that choice. Just like some people.
I could mention some folks in New York City who made that choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like sometimes lawful gun owners may choose to carry in a gun-free zone simply because we did the math and and the chances of our firearm being discovered, or versus needing to use it, it weighs out in the correct way. So I don't have a huge problem, especially given that Maj, it turns out, is a prohibited person for a complete BS charge. This is not violent. This is not a dangerous thing. This is not something that would cause any concern for me as someone who's hung out with Maj to be suddenly being like, oh my gosh, I was taking my life. No, it wasn't. Oh my God, he might have sold me a knockoff Rolex or some dodgy Air Jordans.
And there's as David can definitely attest, there are certain communities where that's one of the better ways to get food on your plate. So
yeah, but he's gotten increasingly,
people gotta eat.
He's gotten increasingly more politically recently, and I haven't found it to be a good look. And so as sad as I am to hear that someone who I considered a friend is getting themselves in a legal bind, it also is going to maybe get them off Twitter for a little bit.
Right. And of course it has to be said, officially, of course, we here at ACP would never condone people breaking the law, but
no.
Discretion, man. Discretion.
Yep.
But we'd also be foolish to say that we didn't think it. But you jumped ahead on the show notes, Oddball. I was actually talking about how the U.S. Appeal Court is questioning the 4473.
I apologize. I apologize.
It ties in.
Yeah,
it does.
So it kind of ties into Maj's, and it absolutely ties into Biden, to the Hunter Biden case. There is currently a case. I'm trying to remember which appeals court it's in. And of course it
Seventh Circuit.
7th. Thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, I've been getting a lot of my news lately from the Four Boxes Diner, and in this particular case, Guns and Gadgets, Second Amendment news, which they're great sources of news, but unfortunately, they're YouTube videos, so you can't really. It makes it difficult to skim their material.
That's why in the show notes, Erin was very, very nice to let me know that I shouldn't be putting YouTube videos exclusively for stories on there because people want to just skim through it. So I have in the show notes United States v. Holden, which is the
okay, yeah, and there have been arguments being made, and the court is currently questioning whether the Form 4473 is constitutional, which everybody in our audience that has ever bought a gun from an FFL has filled one of those out. And some of us are extremely familiar with that form.
Too familiar.
As David is sitting there twitching.
But no. It says county, not country.
Yeah.
So have I zoned out and missed it, or have you not gotten to the point as to why they're claiming it's not constitutional?
I was about to do that, Erin.
Okay.
Working up to it.
But the specific reason why they're questioning whether it's constitutional or not is the fact that on the form it asks you questions like, are you currently taking or addicted to illicit drugs, including marijuana? And are you currently on the run from the law? Which is my favorite question on the form.
Are you a fugitive from justice?
By the way, if I had owned guns a few years earlier than when I bought my first one, I would have lied on that form because I was a fugitive from justice and I had no earthly idea.
But there is the question of whether it is constitutional to force someone to answer that question on an official government document that you have to sign, that you swear that everything that you put down there is correct to the best of your knowledge, under the Fifth Amendment. Because that is the state requiring you to put down on a form testifying whether or not you're committing a crime or not.
And I have, for those listeners who are interested and maybe not familiar or can't call certain things to mind, I put a link to the ATF website PDF of the Form 4473, so you can look at the phrasing of some of these questions. Such as, are you an alien illegally or unlawfully in the United States? Right.
There's a bunch of those questions that are just straight up, are you breaking the law right now or not? And well, in other situations, the courts have pretty unanimously said you can't do that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, and it'll be interesting to see what changes, if any, happen to the form or the background check in general.
Oh yeah, here's a good one. Do you intend to sell or otherwise dispose of any firearm listed on this form and any continuation sheet or ammunition in furtherance of any felony or other offense punishable by imprisonment for a term of more than 1 year, a federal crime of terrorism, or a drug trafficking offense?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that new question.
Yeah, so it's not just, are you committing, have you committed this crime and are you going to lie about it? Are you planning to commit any crime with anything on this form?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there are two of them. There's, do you intend to purchase or acquire, blah, blah, blah. Do you intend to sell or otherwise dispose of, blah, blah, blah.
I actually find it very interesting that they're actually going on Second Amendment grounds, which is perfectly reasonable because the Second Amendment.
I would think fifth.
You mean fifth?
Exactly. That because I know for a fact. Well, actually, I don't know for a fact. I've heard, and I haven't actually looked it up directly, but I'm pretty sure there was a case where somebody was arrested with an illegal firearm, and they also decided to do a tack-on charge, just like Hunter Biden's lying on the 4473 charge, decided for a tack-on charge to charge them with failure to register the gun. I don't know if they were which state that they were in that had to register.
Oh yes, I remember this one.
Yeah, no,
Did
does
you-
it sound familiar? I think we discussed it on a podcast.
I believe so. Because what was the result of that, Weird?
The result is that criminals are not required to register their firearms because that would be a violation of their Fifth Amendment. Because if you can't legally have the gun, if you tell the government that you have the gun, then you are essentially saying, "Look here, I have committed a crime."
Come get me.
And I'm sorry, I thought I did say that they're challenging it under the under Fifth Amendment, not Second, because and if I said otherwise, I misspoke.
According to the court document that I have here, it's all being challenged on Second Amendment.
Oh, okay.
Yep. But I mean that could be wrong. This is findlaw.com.
Right.
I don't know how good they are. It seems like a pretty solid write up of it. But again, this is for the instance of the have you been at a bad conduct discharge, or, have you been convicted of a felony? Are you the subject of a restraining order? Though all of those ones I don't see as violations of the Fifth Amendment, but the are you an illegal drug user or addict of an illegal substance? In that case, it's one of those, well, if you haven't been convicted of it, you might be, like Hunter Biden, a serious drug addict and just have never been convicted on it. And so therefore saying, I am on this federal document, I am addicted to illegal drugs, you're essentially saying, hey, feds, come check me out. I may end up doing something that you find interesting.
Yes.
Well, and I would argue with those other questions that being compelled to testify one way or the other to questions that could deny you of one of your rights would be in violation of the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah, there are a couple of those. Are you subject to a court order, including a military protection order issued by a military judge or magistrate restraining you from harassing, stalking, or threatening your child or an intimate partner or child of such partner? Yeah, that's not nearly as bad as a lot of the others because it's just asking, is there a court order? But if you say yes to that, you no get gun.
Right.
Although my favorite one, honestly, is have you ever been educated as a mental defective or have you ever been committed to a mental institution? Because when I talk about this one in my classes, I have to reassure people that educated is an important word there. Your spouse saying you're crazy doesn't count.
Adjudicated.
Right.
What did I say?
Educated.
Educated.
Which is weird because I know how it's pronounced.
And that's also different than were you in for observation.
Right. You have to be committed to a mental institution.
Right.
So if you put yourself in for a 24-hour observation, that's fine. Well,
and also if a psychiatrist puts you against your will in for the week for a 48-hour observation or whatever, and after the 48 hours they go the hospital goes, nope, this person's fine, and cuts you loose. That also does not count. Yeah. It's
been a problematical form since 1968.
Mm-hmm.
So let's close out here with this final story. Again, this is another one that I think is not to talk about, but the House had presented. I think the House passed a measure to undo the pistol brace ban, and then it moved on to the Senate, where unfortunately it got shot down 49-50.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was surprised that they didn't get a couple of the what used to be called Blue Dog Democrats to vote yes, knowing it would have been vetoed and there was no way to get around that.
Yeah, again, especially since my theory that a lot of these blue district representatives are getting some heat from their constituents, because when the shelves got emptied out, it was not
us.
Yeah, it's not us. We were going. They're selling ARs for what? And ammo's costing what?
A
I'll
box
just hang
stock
back.
Glock Gen 5, Glock 19 Gen 5 for $1,000? You know.
Yeah, those of us who've got a safe full of guns will be like, I'll just hold on to the ones I have.
Not even a safe full. There are people who have like the standard one handgun, one rifle, one shotgun weren't buying at that point either for the most part.
Well, the people I know who had a safe though, I knew several people that were like, never really loved this gun all that much. But the way it is.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it's time for you to be free.
You would. I don't know what gun shows are like in your area, or if you go to gun shows in your area, but there is basically a monthly gun show at the Knoxville Expo Center. And Q3 2020, you could not fit through the aisles. And it seemed like half the people there were selling a gun. And they weren't, I'm selling this this is my only gun, I'm selling it. It was basically, I think I could do with a mortgage payment in exchange for this gun. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't. Has anyone published the roll call for this one?
I think so, but I'd have to dig it up again.
Yeah, I don't know. Was there any surprising ones in there?
I don't think so, but honestly, I was on the opposite side of David. I was surprised that it was as close as it was.
Yeah,
I am
either
really
way,
starting to crash.
They didn't have a veto-proof majority, and so this was never going to get passed because Biden would for sure veto it. But it's good to put it out there, especially when the courts are potentially going to be hearing these cases. So we shall. Obviously the injunctions that are the temporary restraining orders are all in lieu of the pending court case that will rule whether this is constitutional or unconstitutional. Spoiler alert: it's unconstitutional.
I honestly, I don't care if it's Second Amendment or Fifth Amendment that it gets declared unconstitutional. I wouldn't mind if it was 9th or 10th for that matter.
Oh yeah, that's the 10th would be.
Although it would be interesting if they did it on the 19th. That would be.
Which was the 19th?
Women's suffrage.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, that's a good one.
Pretty sure that was what? 19th? Or was that 7th? No, 17th was tax.
Once we get outside of the Bill of Rights, my memorization and my Bill of Rights is a little hazy at times.
19th was women's suffrage, granted women right to vote.
Yeah, good memory.
Weird memory, but yes, I'll go with that.
Yes. All right. Well, I am fading fast, so I'm sure you guys are too, because
you have no idea.
Yeah, we've all been doing lots of traveling, and I've got a super early call in the morning.
Yeah.
So
we got home late last night, crashed out, got up first thing this morning, went in and taught a private lesson, and tomorrow morning I have to get up first thing in the morning and go to a doctor's appointment. So I'm a little loopy.
I've been up since 5 a.m.
Oh, shush, farmer.
All right, so I am going to thank our listeners, each and every one of you. Yes, if you can hear me right, I am thanking you because you guys are awesome. I kind of love you. But who I love more, who's more special, is our supporters on Patreon.
I thought you were going to say Erin.
You guys are family. I'm legally obliged to love all of you. No matter how mean you are to me.
You love it.
Love it. In stereo available.
And the thing about the patrons is that this is not like a begging. This is not a tip jar. We're selling you stuff. And you can go to patreon.com/Assorted podcast and sign up to get the podcast early if you want to do that. But you can also get the blooper reels. Blooper reels are a big selling point. The ACP film tracks are pretty awesome. And there's also the ACP mag dump where we talk more about the politics that we were kind of tiptoeing around.
Also, please remember to rate an Apple Podcast, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, share with your friends,
I get a blog, it's weirdworld.com, and let's just go down to the other people. Hey, David, what do you got?
Headache. I'm here, I'm on Handgun Radio, I'm on Blue Collar Prepping, I write books, they're on Amazon.
Oddball, what do you got?
Gunscarstech.com, and apparently I'm becoming more and more of a co-host of Handgun Radio.
Xander, what do you got?
I got nothing.
Aw.
Aside from the occasional contribution here, and I still need to write that blue-collar prepping article that Erin asked me to.
Linkter.e/Erin Paulette, all one word.
Thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
I go to cons, Weer'd goes to weddings. Our weekend plans are assorted, and so is our podcast. Good night, everybody. I'm going to crash now.
Good night.
Good
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Tip your staff. Wait.
Try the veal.
What about the tip of my staff?
Tip the veal and try the waitress.
Here you go. Hey-o.